Hello, my name is Steve Pavel from DSD Business Systems, and I'm providing another video on the power of Sage Intelligence. Little background, I used to be a CPA and I used to perform financial audits way back. I've been working with Sage 100, formerly called Mass 90, since 1991. And Sage Intelligence is a very powerful tool. And in my opinion, it's one of the best things that Sage has released in the past 10 years. So why is Sage Intelligence so a powerful tool? It is because it combines the ability to query the database tables within Sage with the SQL language and combining that power with all the power that you have in Excel. I sometimes refer to Sage Intelligence as extending Sage 100 into Excel. The report we're going to cover in this video is an AP Aging report, and I actually will call it an AP Aging Report Plus because there's so much more that you can do with that besides getting a report. All right, so with that, I will get started here. Okay, so I have a demo company here, and I'm going to go ahead and launch the Sage Intelligence reporting. When I launch that, the report manager is going to, if it's a single company report, which this is, it's going to connect to the company database that I launched Sage Intelligence Report Manager from. As you can see here, that is the company DSD that I launched it from. So I have an AP report, and it is called DSD AP Aging. So let's go ahead and run that. First thing it's going to ask you is, what is your as of date? So if I want to, and we can, this is the beauty, one of the beauties of this report is that we can get the aging as of whatever date we would like. You know, it could be the end of the month, or it could be any day within a given month. So I'm going to run this as of November 30th. And how long this report takes to run, of course, is going to be depend upon the size of your database tables in that company, as well as the power of the computer that you're running it on. I would recommend that you don't have other Excel things open to get the best performance and to avoid messages like Excel is busy and so forth. So I know that it's running because in the upper right, we have the tasks listed, and then down at the bottom, it also provided us a timer. All right, the report did in fact finish. So I had it set so that it automatically opens up to this particular tab in this particular cell. You don't need to do anything here because when we ran the report, we told it we wanted the as of date and aging date to be 11/30. Okay, so let's look at just the aging part of this report. So the first tab I'm going to show you is the invoice date aging by vendor. So what this is doing is it's providing an aging based upon the invoice date. And I made these parameter dates, the aging bucket dates, the same as the Sage 100 aging bucket dates. In this case, it's 30, 60, 90, 120. All right, so let's compare that to Sage 100. I already ran the report, so. All right, so here's the aging report that I ran within Sage 100. And I'll point out a couple of things on this. When you go to run this report, you have the option to age it by the invoice date or by the invoice due date. Okay, I ran it, as you see here, I ran it as of 11/30 using the invoice date. And this is what I came up with. As you probably know, your Sage 100 aging report is not designed to tie to your general ledger account balance as of that date, which is one of the reasons why you would want like the Sage Intelligence AP aging. So then I also ran the AP trial balance report. And you'll notice that on the AP trial balance report, that report was designed by Sage to tie to your general ledger account balance. And you might notice that this one is also as of 11/30. And you might notice that your total payables on the aging differs from the trial balance report. Well, let's go look at the general ledger. So here's my AP GL account, and I can see that as of November 30th, I have a balance of 121802642, and that does in fact match the AP trial balance report, but it does not match the aging report because, like we said, Sage did not design the aging report to tie it to the GL. All right, but your auditors or bankers, somebody may be requesting, I want an aging report as of the end of the month. Okay, so you can't produce that using the built-in Sage one that would actually tie to your balance sheet. All right, so let's compare that with the AP aging by vendor tab here in the Sage Intelligence Report, and we see that it's like, yeah, that is that same number, and it does in fact tie to the general ledger, and you can see that we have actually an aging here. All right, so I'm going to minimize these Sage. I guess I will show you on the aging report here, just as a comparison. Let's move this out of the way. So as we said, the grand total is not going to match up to the Sage 100 aging report. However, you will see that, you know, the aging here is pretty consistent. Looks like the differences in the current bucket, the 146, you know, 30, 60, 90, 120 amounts are actually matching up there. All right, I think we're going to spend the rest of the time looking at the Sage Intelligence Report. All right, so the first tab, the aging based upon the invoice date, you see that. Now I added, so I called this the Invoice Aging Report Plus, and I'm going to show you some of the examples of why I'm calling it that. So I put, as you know, you have pivot table here, and you have numerous fields of data that you can use in your pivot table. So just as an example, I put in, maybe you want to see only your active vendors, only your inactive vendors. Maybe you want to see if any of your vendors are on hold, you can filter it by that. If you wanted to see if any of these open AP invoices are on hold, you can do that. So I'm seeing that there is at least one. So I'm going to go ahead and say, show me the AP invoices that are on hold. Actually, I didn't find any. Okay, the other thing that I added is the paid today. So I also perform Sage 100 support, and on occasion we get support calls saying, "Hey, I'm trying to pay an invoice, but it won't select it. It says it's being paid, but it hasn't been paid." So I put this filter in, you know, for support reasons, that we can identify if there are any AP invoices that are incorrectly marked in the database as being paid. So we have numerous other fields here. I tried to put in, anticipate anything that people might want. So I used some examples that maybe you want to see, maybe you've got foreign vendors and you want to do just the vendors in the USA or vendors in a certain country. Maybe you want to look at just credit card vendors. Maybe you want to look at just vendors that you pay via ACH. Maybe you want to base it on the vendor type. So essentially anything that's within the table, we can use that as a filter for showing, reflecting that filter on this tab here. All right, so yeah, pivot table, I'm just going to open this up as an example. So I got, as you see here, I got a company code at the top, which brings up a good point. I do have the plumbing in here for a multi-company aging report. So if you have a need for that, we can do that. Then I've got division in case the company has multiple AP divisions. Then I've got the next level is the AP vendor's number concatenated with the name. And then below that, the actual invoice number. All right, let me move on to the second tab. and that is invoice due date aging. So the first one is aging based on the invoice date. The second one is aging based upon the invoice due date. I'm going to go back to the parameters here and show you. If you're going to age by the invoice date, kind of makes sense to do 30, 60, 90, 120. But maybe you've got special terms with your vendors, and you just want to see if you're late based upon their due date, not how many days it is since the invoice date. So I actually put the different aging here in this section, and this is the aging dates that are going to drive the invoice due date aging. So as an example, in the first bucket here, I'm just looking for any invoice that is 1 day beyond its due date. And then the second bucket would be beyond 30 days and so forth. So going back to the Sage aged invoice report, when you go to run this report, you saw that you pick the aging date, and then you can pick whether you want to age by invoice date or invoice due date. But on here, you do not have the capability to specify, well, if I'm going to age on invoice due date, I want it to be based upon, 1 day past due and 31 days past due and so forth, as opposed to using 30 days past due. So another advantage of this particular Sage Intelligence report. You'll notice that, we have that same number and the layout's pretty similar. And again, we have all those filters. All right, so those are your 2 aging reports. And the nice thing, I designed it such that when you run it, you're going to get both. You're going to get the invoice date aging based on invoice date, as well as based upon due date. All right, I added a couple other tabs. This goes along with what I was saying in terms of making this a tool. I'm calling it the AP Aging Report Plus. So let's go to this tab. All right, so this particular tab, again, we have all those filters available. All right, but this one I'm sorting by the division number and then the days past due. So I see my very oldest ones here at the top. Okay, and you can see that, and then it's in descending order. So I can see that these are actually credits here, but like this one's like, 26 days prior to, its due date. You see these are like due right now. Okay, so that's what that is. And again, you have those same filters, but this allows you to focus in on like, why do we have these really old, credits or really old invoices? In this case, it's pretty darn clean, but maybe there's some credits we want to follow up on. So let's use this vendor as an example as MN01. So on the next tab, you can do expected cash disbursements. And then the next tab is the pivot by vendor. So if I actually wanted to bring in, look at that vendor that had the past due credit memo, it is FAS MN01. So I'm going to go over here. And let's look for just that one vendor. There it is. Okay, and I can see there everything that's going on with that vendor. So we have that old invoice back from 2021. We had another invoice, and it was back in July of 21. It was paid, and then we have an open invoice for June 8th of 2023. So not that we're going to do anything with this, but just to show you an example of you can go to this tab to find out everything kind of like recent history with that particular vendor. Let me circle back to the expected cash disbursements. So this one, I said, well, as long as we have this AP data, why don't we go ahead and allow the end user to get forecasted cash disbursements. So what we can do here is we can base that off the due date. I'm going to grab the due date here. I'm actually going to put it right below the division. And you might have noticed it's like, oh yeah, there's our same number again, the 1218, which is our total balance. All right, so when you put the invoice due date in there, it automatically groups by years and months. And so forth. So I immediately changed that by right clicking and then say, let's go ahead and group. But let's say that I want to group it not by months, quarters, or years, but I want to group it by weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and pick days here. And I'm going to say I want it based on 7-day intervals. And then also I want to start it as of, so that today is 12/1. All right, click OK. And let me go ahead and collapse this. Okay, so now I'm seeing, based upon the due date, the buckets, of so what I expect, that's like, yep, I'm going to have to come up with this much cash, uh, to pay these things that were due on or before 12/1, and then on or before 12/7, and so forth. And again, you see that it's like, yeah, that's our same balance. So we know that we're tying that out. All right, got the same filters, that I showed you before. If you want to see, I don't want to see the ones that are on hold, or I want to see if there's any that are actually being in a check run, for payment today. That's what that is. Okay, so let's move. I covered this tab. Let's move on to the GL postings tab. So this is nice because on occasion we get support calls, saying, hey, my AP report detail is not tying to my GL account. And we got to figure out, and then we're in a position where we want to try to help figure out why that is. All right, so I added this capability for that reason. This one, you see that we got it by the division, then actually by the transaction date, that's the GL posting date. And then the type of transaction, if I open that up, you'll see here that it's like, yep, A is an adjustment, I is an invoice, P is a payment. So I can look at it day by day to find out what invoice, what happened on that day, getting down to the invoice level. All right, let me bring up that GL accounting group again. All right, so you will notice here that it's like, yep, I picked here. I didn't show you this. So here you can pick whatever month it is that you want to look at, or whatever months. So so I picked just November. And then you see in November, my total activity, net activity of what happened is 160,082.18. So I can actually match that up with the GL. Yeah, and I can see that that is in fact my GL activity, the 160,082.18. Right. And then theoretically, if I go to the transactions here and I look at the month of November, I can tie that out day by day to say what happened in the general ledger on, say, 11/1 as an example, 11/2, 11/2 maybe. All right, you see, it's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what happened on 11/2, and so forth. So it makes it a lot easier to use this tool to figure out what happened, or when did this GL and AP not match? When did they get off, and how much was it? And I can see exactly what happened in the GL module here with the drill downs, and I can also see that here in the GL postings pivot table. We'll talk about some other things that this report can help you out with. So if I go back to sheet 1, that is my query. That's the original query that I ran. And sometimes I will use this to say, let's go ahead and filter all these columns. All right, and on occasion we get calls about, hey, there's a bad date error, okay, or something's not making sense. So we can do this. We can filter and then look at these invoice dates, and if I see any that you see 1900, that's really the credit memos, so that's really not a problem. But if I saw something in here saying 2025 as an example, then I'd know, like, hey, you got some kind of bad future date on some AP transaction. I can identify which one it is. All right, so any of the date fields, you can do that. Got the invoice date, the due date, the discount due date, if that applies, and the GL transaction posting date. All right, this also can be used for, like I said, for analyzing or filtering pretty much anything that's in here. You can see all these fields are also available for the pivot table filters as well. Okay, so hopefully I did a good job of presenting the value of this report, and it goes way beyond a report. It's a tool that's very helpful for any questions you or your auditors or anyone would have related to your open accounts payable. All right, so I have other videos with Sage Intelligence, and so I encourage you to watch those. Thank you for your time, and have a good day.